Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Tonight, we are telling you about a world on edge. Did Ukraine try to kill Russian President Vladimir Putin? A shocking claim from Moscow has derailed peace talks. We'll tell you what each side has said and how the world is responding. In Asia, China has surrounded Taiwan. It is conducting its biggest ever military drill near the island, with more ships, more jets, and less room for miscalculation. In West Asia, allies have turned rivals. It's Saudi Arabia versus the UAE. A proxy war is playing out in Yemen. And a stark warning from Silicon Valley: AI will take many more jobs in 2026. Also in focus, Bangladesh is in mourning. Former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia has died. In Iran, protests have erupted after the currency crashed. In India, Prime Minister Modi has warned about antibiotic resistance. We're also looking back at India's year of IPOs, record listings but mixed returns for investors, and why New Year celebrations have been scaled back across the world. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Syria imposes an overnight curfew in the port city of Latakia after attacks in predominantly Alawite neighborhoods. On Sunday, 3 people were killed during protests by the minority community since Bashar al-Assad, who is an Alawite, was ousted in December 2024. The minority group has been under attack. Iran designates the Royal Canadian Navy a terrorist organization. Tehran says it is a tit-for-tat move after Ottawa blacklisted Iran's Revolutionary Guard in 2024. Canada broke off diplomatic ties with Iran in 2012, calling Tehran, quote-unquote, the most significant threat to global peace. South Korea's president to visit China. He will land there on Sunday to boost ties with Beijing. During the trip, he will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. The two leaders last met in November on the sidelines of the APEC summit. Li's visit will be the first by a South Korean leader to China since 2019. Moody's downgrades the city of Budapest's credit rating to junk level. The ratings agency blamed the Hungarian capital's weak liquidity and an increased default risk for the decision. This comes amid a row between Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government and Budapest's opposition mayor. And Eurostar suspends all train services in Europe after a power failure in the English Channel tunnel. This has triggered major travel chaos during the busy holiday season. Today's disruption was the latest to affect Eurostar. In August, an electrical fault had forced the cancellation of Eurostar services.
To be offensive because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that.
Did Ukraine try to kill Vladimir Putin? That's the new flashpoint in the war. It's a claim that has shocked world capitals. It has derailed the peace talks and left experts scratching their heads. I know it sounds too risky to be true, but Russia says it did happen, that Ukraine did indeed try to kill President Putin, and that too in the middle of intense peace negotiations. Now, the claim was made by Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. He said Kiev fired 91 drones at Putin's house, 91 drones. Specifically, they targeted his residence in the Novgorod region. That's around 500 kilometers west of Moscow. Sergei Lavrov also says that all those drones were shot down.
On the night of December 28th and 29th, the Kiev regime launched a terrorist attack using 91 long-range strike unmanned aerial vehicles on the state residence of the President of the Russian Federation in the Novgorod region. All UAVs were destroyed by air defense systems of the Russian armed forces. Given the complete degeneration of the criminal Kiev regime, which has shifted to a policy of state terrorism, Russia's negotiating position will be reconsidered.
And when did the attack happen? Late on Sunday, on the night of December 28th and 29th. That's what Russia has said. And you know what else happened on the same day, on Sunday night? The talks between the US and Ukraine. President Donald Trump hosted Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky in Miami. They came out upbeat about a peace deal, but Russia says on the same night, Ukraine launched this attack to kill Putin. If true, it's a mindless escalation. And that's a big if. Did Ukraine really try to bomb Putin? Kiev has rejected the claim. Here's what Zelensky is saying, and I'm quoting, "This alleged resident strike story is a complete fabrication intended to justify additional attacks against Ukraine, including Kiev, as well as Russia's own refusal to take necessary steps to end the war. Typical Russian lies." So Zelensky has called it a lie. And now you have two different versions. Russia says Ukraine attacked Putin's house. Ukraine says it's a lie. And is there any proof to settle this confusion? Maybe some drone debris or footage. Russia says all the drones were effectively intercepted. As for debris, we haven't seen any yet. The Kremlin says, ask the Russian Defense Ministry. And just to be clear, the burden of proof is on Russia. After all, they made the allegations and they must prove it, or they must provide the evidence to back it up. Having said that, this is not just another allegation. This is as serious as it gets. So proof or not, it will trigger concerns. And it has. We are already seeing world leaders express concern. Putin personally informed Donald Trump about the alleged strikes, and the US president was not happy. Here's what he said.
I heard about it this morning. You know who told me about it? President Putin told me about it. Early in the morning, he said he was attacked. It's no good. It's no good. Don't forget, you know, the Tomahawks. I stopped the Tomahawks. I didn't want that. Because we're talking about, you know, it's a delicate period of time. This is not the right time. It's one thing to be offensive, because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that, and can't do it.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed concern. Let me quote from the statement that he posted. "We urged all concerned to remain focused on diplomatic efforts and to avoid any actions that could undermine them." It's not just India. The UAE has also expressed concern, and this seems to have angered Ukraine. Their foreign minister has hit out at India and the UAE. He says Kiev is disappointed and concerned. He is asking the likes of India to act responsibly. So here's a question for Ukraine. Your top ally, Donald Trump, also believes Putin. Trump openly said that he is angry about the strike. Why isn't Ukraine slamming Trump? Why aren't you asking him to act responsibly? Because it's not convenient. And it's just another example of their hypocrisy. Nonetheless, let's examine this claim of the residents' attack. Why would Ukraine try to attack Putin's home? Logic says they wouldn't, because it would invite a deadly response and it would completely derail the peace talks. So why would they do it? Because Ukraine also sees Putin as the main obstacle to peace. Not the Russian military, not the Russian public, but Vladimir Putin himself. He is Ukraine's biggest challenge. If you remove him, maybe you end the war. Frankly, it's a very unlikely possibility. Nonetheless, this could be the rationale. And on the other side, why would Russia make such a bold claim? Well, why wouldn't they? For starters, it drives a wedge between Trump and Zelensky. Just think about it. Trump is pushing hard for a truce, and in the middle of that, Zelensky targets Putin's house. That's like sabotaging the peace process. So Russia could be making this claim just to make Zelensky look bad. Or it could be an excuse to escalate the war. Because look at what happened yesterday. Putin convened his top military commanders. He had one message for them. Russia must take all of Donbass.
We all understand that liberating Seversk and effective operations in Kostiantynivka allow our forces to create conditions for further advances and for taking the entire Sloviansk-Druzhkivka and Kramatorsk agglomeration, seizing the whole enemy defensive line there, in coordination with the Zapad and Center groups to fully liberate Donbass region.
Even Putin is losing patience because these talks have followed the same pattern. Putin draws his red lines, Trump agrees to them, then Zelensky speaks to his European friends, they present a new peace plan, they convince Trump to tweak his proposal, and finally they send it back to Moscow. This has been the story since the start of 2025. Ukraine has been unwilling to make meaningful concessions. We spoke about NATO last week. In public, Zelensky admitted that NATO membership was impossible. Instead, he pushed for bilateral protection. It was billed as a tiny concession by Ukraine. But when the ceasefire draft leaked, NATO was gone from it. No promise of neutrality or abandoning NATO. I'm sure this is frustrating for all sides. So maybe this is Russia's way of saying enough is enough. We've had enough of pointless negotiations. It is time to toughen our demands. Or who knows, maybe the strike actually happened. In which case, brace for a response like never before. China is turning up the heat on Taiwan. It's day 2 of their military drills, the largest and closest military drills targeting Taiwan. Beijing calls it Justice Mission 2025. Chinese forces have encircled Taiwan. They've mobilized warships, fighter jets, and rocket forces. And this morning, they fired live rockets. Take a look at this first. China has released videos. They show a truck-mounted rocket system. It is firing multiple rockets, one after the other. Thankfully, no one was hurt in this. The rockets landed in the waters just north of Taiwan. But the message landed straight in Taipei. This is a massive show of force from Beijing. Taiwan says it has detected at least 130 Chinese military aircraft, 130 aircraft, also 22 vessels of different kinds. This is the biggest deployment of Chinese military assets around Taiwan, and it has disrupted daily life on the island. More than 200 flights have been cancelled. It has impacted more than 100,000 passengers, and China's drills are only becoming more aggressive. With every maneuver, they're testing the limits and getting closer to the island of Taiwan.
Such actions fully demonstrate that China not only fails to uphold global and regional peace and stability, but also repeatedly challenges the principles in the United Nations Charter regarding the prohibition of the use of threats and force, continuously undermining the international order and the status quo in the region.
These drills are taking place in 7 zones around Taiwan. The idea is to simulate a blockade and coordinate rapid attacks on multiple targets. The Chinese military is called the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. They are practicing different scenarios to invade Taiwan. China is basically telling the world that it can strike Taiwan at any time and that it is capable of conducting a full-blown military invasion. That's what these drills are designed to show. They're amplifying the message with propaganda posts. The first one is called Hammer of Justice. That's what this post is called. Look at it on your screen. It was released by China's Eastern Theater Command. It shows 2 massive hammers smashing Taiwan's northern and southern ports. The message is this: China can block Taiwan's trade routes. The second post is titled Chokehold. This one was published by the Chinese Coast Guard. It has ships surrounding Taiwan's ports. The text says China is cutting off delusions of outside help. That's what they said. China is cutting off delusions of outside help. There are 2 more posters like this. One is titled national reunification. It shows the Chinese military chopping off quote-unquote foreign vines. China says these vines represent, and I'm quoting again, these vines represent external influence in Taiwan. So their military is cutting them off. And the last post is called Strength is Transparent. This one shows Taiwan completely surrounded by Chinese weapons. It asks provocative questions like, how can Taiwan even dream of independence? And what is Taiwan's response to all of this? Well, their president has pushed back. His name is Lai Ching-te. He has issued a public statement. He said China is not acting like a responsible world power, and Taiwan will defend its sovereignty. What about the United States? President Donald Trump was asked about these drills, and he did not seem too worried. He said he had a great relationship with Chinese President Xi. Listen to this.
On China, so China has been doing naval exercises basically to test encircling Taiwan. Can you explain to us what your knowledge is of that? What do you think about that? Have you had any discussions with China?
Well, I have a great
that?
relationship with President Xi, and he hasn't told me anything about it. I certainly have seen it, but he hasn't told me anything about it, and I don't believe he's going to be doing it.
Does it worry you?
No, nothing worries me. Nothing.
That statement would worry Taipei. The United States is their biggest military and diplomatic supporter. They're counting on the U.S. to step in if China invades. The U.S. and Taiwan have a mutual defense treaty. It says if Taiwan is attacked, the United States will help them. Although the language is ambiguous, it does not specify how the U.S. will help and to what extent. And this is by design. Washington calls it strategic ambiguity. Successive American presidents have stuck to this position. They have avoided stating clearly if they will send troops to defend Taiwan. And now President Trump's remarks add a new layer to that uncertainty. They appear to downplay Taiwan's concerns. They frame China's military actions as routine. So is Trump signaling a shift? Is he quietly conceding ground to Beijing? The possibility cannot be ruled out because Beijing has blamed the U.S. for these drills. China is upset with the United States because they have been giving weapons to Taiwan. The latest package, in fact, was cleared by President Trump himself. The U.S. is selling weapons worth $11 billion to Taiwan, and China's foreign minister has called it a provocation.
Taiwan issue is China's internal affair and is the core of China's core interests. In response to the continual provocation of the Taiwan Independence Forces and the U.S. large-scale arms sales to Taiwan, we will, of course, strongly oppose them and take countermeasures.
That's Wang Yi, China's top diplomat. He also took aim at Japan. As you know, China and Japan are locked in a tense standoff. It began last month when Japan's prime minister made a statement. She said if China attacks Taiwan, Japan could get involved militarily. And that remark angered Beijing. It has launched a wave of retaliation, including travel advisories, cancelled flights, a ban on Japanese seafood, and an unending war of words. And now Wang Yi has added fuel to the fire. He says Japan is creating instability in the region.
Japan, who started the war of Japanese aggression against China, has not only failed to reflect on all the crimes it committed, but its current leader has openly challenged China's territorial sovereignty, the historical conclusions of the World War II, and the post-war international order.
With these drills, China is targeting both the US and Japan. The idea is not just to intimidate Taiwan, the idea is to isolate it. Let's turn to West Asia now, where a proxy war is unfolding in Yemen. On one side is Saudi Arabia, on the other side is the UAE. Two close allies now at odds. We have seen open threats, we have seen airstrikes. The question is, will there be a full-blown confrontation? Let me tell you what happened today. This morning, Saudi military attacked a port in Yemen. It is called Mukalla in the south. Look at the aftermath. Why did Riyadh bomb the port? They say Mukalla was receiving weapon shipments from the UAE. 2 ships had allegedly brought arms to Yemen, so Riyadh decided to blow them up. But that wasn't even the most explosive move. That would come a few hours later. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry released a sharp statement. They named and accused the UAE of hurting Saudi interests. And we'll come to that in a bit. But first, let me give you some background. Yemen is basically a country split into 2. The north is controlled by the Houthis. It's a rebel group supported by Iran. The south is ruled by the internationally recognized government. But this government is also a divided one. It has a presidential council, which is supported by Saudi Arabia. It also has a Southern Transition Council, or STC. And this is backed by the UAE. Now, technically, these 2 factions are rivals. They united with the sole purpose of fighting the Houthis. From 2015, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have been fighting this war. And their own soldiers were deployed in Yemen. But in 2019, the UAE began pulling out. On paper, they still support the southern regime, though recently, things have heated up. Earlier this month, the UAE-backed forces launched a surprise offensive. They now control virtually all of southern Yemen. What followed were massive celebrations on the streets. Take a look. So what's the end goal here? Why is the UAE-backed STC fighting the regime? Well, they want a new country now, a country called South Yemen. And the demand itself is not new. South Yemen was a country from 1967 to 1990. It was the only communist country in the Arab world. It was reunified after the Cold War. And now the STC says, let's go back to the old days. But the Saudi-backed regime is opposing this plan. They have cancelled a security agreement with the UAE. They've also given Abu Dhabi a deadline. Leave southern Yemen in 24 hours.
Unfortunately, it has been definitively confirmed that the United Arab Emirates has exerted pressure on and directed the Southern Transitional Council to undermine state authority and rebel against it through military escalation, attacks on armed forces positions, repeated assaults on the tribes of Hadramaut and innocent civilians.
Riyadh was seeing all of this unfold. Last week, they launched strikes on STC positions, and today they hit alleged UAE shipments. And then came Saudi Arabia's statement. The steps taken by the UAE are considered highly dangerous and do not serve the purpose of achieving security and stability for Yemen. In this context, the kingdom stresses that any threat to its national security is a red line, and the kingdom will not hesitate to take all necessary steps and measures to confront and neutralize any such threat. Those are very strong words, especially when it's aimed at an ally. Saudi Arabia is accusing the UAE of threatening its security. And what does the UAE say? Well, they have basically denied all of it. They have denied supporting the STC offensive. They have denied sending arms to Mukalla. They have also denied hurting Saudi interests. Plus, the UAE is reminding Riyadh of its own sacrifices in Yemen. It is asking for more coordination and wisdom. And that sums up the events of today. We had strikes, we had statements, and we had counter-statements. The question is, what comes next? Well, the UAE is offering a concession. They have agreed to withdraw all remaining forces from Yemen. But will that be enough? I ask because Saudi Arabia has legitimate concerns in Yemen. Their border is more than 1,300 kilometers long. A Houthi-run Yemen is bad news for the Saudis. And we saw that in 2019 and again in 2022. The Houthis launched attacks on Saudi oil facilities. So stability in Yemen is non-negotiable for Riyadh. Like they said, it's a red line. But for the UAE, the concerns are different. They wanted a reliable ally in Yemen, someone who could protect Yemen's oil resources and sea lanes. And frankly, it looks like they got one. So the future is hard to predict right now. Saudi Arabia has the more pressing goal, but the UAE has the edge. Let's see how this proxy battle unfolds. Remember when they said AI will take all the jobs? Like AI is Thanos. It will snap its fingers and magically all the jobs will disappear. Well, this was a warning we heard too many times this year, and now as the year comes to a close, the warning is back again. This time it's coming from Geoffrey Hinton. He is known for his work on artificial neural networks. Basically, he helped build the very brain that AI thinks with. And that is why he's called the godfather of AI. And now that godfather has a stark warning. Geoffrey Hinton says this is just the beginning. In 2026, more jobs will be lost due to AI, and the wipeout is just getting started.
We're going to see AI get even better. It's already extremely good. It's already able to replace jobs in call centers, but it's going to be able to replace many other jobs.
So Hinton's argument is quite simple. AI was already good. It's only getting better. It has already replaced clerical jobs, and now it is coming for others. Because in the coming year, AI will make massive capability leaps. That's what Hinton has predicted. I'll give you an example. There is an AI that writes 60-minute software tasks. Hinton says it will soon be able to handle full projects. That's the sort of leap it will make. And what does that mean for jobs? You'll need less people to do the same work. If you needed 10 engineers for a task earlier, now you would need only 2. So the prediction is grim. But will it stand the test of time? We ask because of what happened this year. 2025 started with AI integrating in the workforce. Amazon cut tens of thousands of roles, Microsoft laid off people, and so did Salesforce. IBM allowed AI to handle chunks of its HR work, and in October this year, AI-linked layoffs surged to their highest. Globally, 14% workers are affected by artificial intelligence. 14%. They were either displaced or they changed their careers. And 14% is a significant number. It translates to around 375 million workers. Of course, all of them did not lose their jobs. So how many people did? We don't know that yet. There is no combined estimate, but it could be anywhere between 4 to 5 million people. In the United States, 1.9 million people lost due to AI adoption. 1.9 million jobs were lost, rather, due to AI adoption. In China, it was 1.2 million jobs. In India, 650,000 IT service jobs were lost, and so on in other countries. And all these add up to around 5 million. But it was not all grim, because companies also realized that AI could not replace all humans. Like Swedish fintech company Klarna. They fired 700 people to replace them with AI, but soon it felt like a mistake, so now they're hiring people back. Also, do remember that the industry itself has not lived up to the hype. 95% of generative AI pilot projects have failed. So only 5% of the projects have worked, and even these are not making money. So this year has been a mixed bag. AI has disrupted the job market. It has made some roles redundant, but it has also failed in some places. The question is, will the next year be different? Here's what we know. There are certain jobs that AI still cannot do, like jobs that require empathy or very technical skills, or even those that are very creative in nature. Like you wouldn't want to buy an art piece where the human has 6 fingers. At the same time, many jobs are at risk of being wiped out, like those of call center agents or IT support executives. By the end of 2026, AI could replace or displace 75 million jobs, 75 million. On the upside, AI may also create 133 million new jobs. And for these jobs, you will require new skills. So here's the takeaway as we enter a new year. AI is not like a meteor that will hit suddenly. It's like a rising tide. You have time to prepare for impact. And the first thing that you must do is to upskill, because your job literally depends on it. Second, build a second layer of skills, something that will differentiate you from others. And third, learn to work with AI. That's the only way to survive this churn. Not to run away from artificial intelligence, but to run with it. Bangladesh is in mourning today. One of their dearest leaders has passed away. It's Khaleda Zia, a former prime minister, a resilient party leader and a respected stateswoman. She had been hospitalized late in November. Her doctors said her condition was extremely critical. Last week, her son, Tariq Rahman, returned from an exile 17 years later, a 17-year-long exile. He met Khaleda Zia at the hospital on Thursday, and today she breathed her last. Dozens of supporters turned up outside the hospital. Many of them broke down in tears. Khaleda Zia was 80 years old. She was born before the partition of India in West Bengal. At the age of 15, she married a soldier, Zia-ur Rahman. He fought in Bangladesh's 1971 Liberation War. He also became the country's president. Zia-ur Rahman ruled Bangladesh from 1977 to 1981. During this time, Khaleda Zia stayed in the shadows. No politics, no public role. But in 1981, her husband was assassinated. Zia had no option but to take over his party, the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP. In the next decade, Khaleda Zia fought against military rule in Dhaka. She was arrested multiple times. But when democracy returned in 1991, she cashed in. The BNP won the elections that year, and Khaleda Zia became the Prime Minister, Bangladesh's first woman Prime Minister. She lost re-election in 1996. She returned to power again in 2001, this time with the help of Islamist parties. By 2008, Zia's downfall had begun. She was arrested and convicted on corruption charges. Her party's influence had shrunk, and she began battling health issues. So it's been a typical political story, a tragedy, a struggle, a rise, and then a fall. But this story wouldn't have been possible without one person, and that is Sheikh Hasina. Hasina and Zia dominated Bangladeshi politics for a generation, from the 1990s to the 2020s. In 1991, Zia won the election. In 1996, Hasina won the election. In 2001, Zia returned to power, and in 2008, Hasina returned the favor. This tussle was billed as the Battle of Begums. Begum meaning queen or noble woman. And this wasn't some friendly battle. It was bitter and vengeful. When Zia came to power, Sheikh Hasina supporters were persecuted. When Sheikh Hasina came to power, Khaleda Zia supporters were jailed. They represented very different ideologies. Hasina was progressive and secular. Zia leaned towards Islamism. Hasina had a warm relationship with India, but Zia did not. It was a battle that shaped 34 years of Bangladesh's 54-year history. And now it's over. Khaleda Zia is no more, and Sheikh Hasina is in exile. Neither leader will be on the ballot in February. It will be the first election without either Begum. Clearly, it's a watershed moment for Bangladesh. But what does this moment mean for the country's politics? What does it mean for the wider region? Well, Zia's party appears to be in safe hands. Her son has taken over the leadership. Plus, there is hope among the cadre. The BNP could return to power after 20 years. And if they do, maybe they can fix this mess. Because this is a big mess. There are reports of another Hindu man being killed in Bangladesh, the third in less than 2 weeks. The victim was a member of the paramilitary forces. He was apparently shot by a colleague. As of now, the motive is not clear. Some reports say it could have been an accidental firing. Even if it's not, expect the interim regime to dismiss it. Because Muhammad Yunus cannot see the reality anymore. For him, everything is about India and Sheikh Hasina. And we saw that again today. Yunus spoke about Zia's fight against fascism. That's a clear reference to Sheikh Hasina.
Her uncompromising leadership against autocracy and fascism repeatedly guided the nation out of democracy-deprived situations and inspired the people toward freedom.
Which brings us to the second question. How will this moment shape the region? Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended his condolences today. He praised Zia's contributions to India-Bangladesh ties. And that's not all. Tomorrow, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar will travel to Dhaka. He will represent India at Khaleda Zia's funeral. And this is a very significant gesture. The trip will coincide with escalating India-Bangladesh tensions. It will also be Jaishankar's first visit to Bangladesh since Sheikh Hasina's ouster. So it's a visit to watch out for. Let's see what meetings are lined up in Dhaka. Our next story is about a ship. It's not the kind of ship that we're used to. This ship has no engine. It doesn't need fuel or motors to run. All the sailors use are ropes and sails to guide it. I know it sounds like something from a storybook, but it's not. This is a real ship, and it is sailing as we speak. This ship belongs to the Indian Navy. It is called INS Kondinya. Earlier this week, it set off on its first international voyage. And here's what makes it special. The ship was built entirely by hand. Only wood and coir rope was used, and no modern machinery was involved. This ship is retracing an ancient trade route all the way to Oman. But this voyage is more than just symbolic. It's about reviving forgotten skills and reconnecting with India's maritime past.
It's a ship that runs on wind. There is no engine or need for fuel. Just ropes, wood, and the ocean breeze steer this ship to its destination. This is the INSV Kondinya. Earlier this week, it set sail on its first international voyage. INSV stands for Indian Naval Sailing Vessel. And Kondinya is a traditional Indian stitched ship. It was built using techniques that go back centuries. There was no steel welding or industrial machines used. The ship was built using just coir ropes, wooden planks, and knowledge passed down over generations. The ship was made entirely in India, and it's now retracing an ancient sea route from Porbandar in Gujarat to Muscat in Oman, a route Indian traders once used to sail across the Indian Ocean. So why is this voyage important? Because it's not just a symbolic mission. This is part of a larger effort to revive India's forgotten maritime traditions, to reconnect with the sea and our history with it. The Indian Navy says this voyage is a living ocean expedition. What does that mean? It means this is not a reenactment or a museum exhibit. This is a real ship with a real crew. They'll face real ocean challenges just like ancient sailors did. The project is also meant to celebrate India's shipbuilding traditions, a skill we once led the world in. It's not just about building a ship, it's about preserving the knowledge behind it. The ship was flagged off this week. Oman's ambassador to India was also present there, because this voyage is as much about diplomacy as it is about heritage. India and Oman have long shared maritime ties, and this mission is expected to strengthen that partnership. The Indian Navy says the arrival of Kondinya in Muscat will be a symbol of friendship, trust, and shared maritime history. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also praised the effort. He posted a picture of the ship and called it a tribute to India's maritime traditions. He also sent his best wishes to the crew for a safe and memorable journey. On board are 17 sailors, 4 officers, and 13 naval crew members. So what does this journey really represent? It's not about reaching a destination. It's about remembering a legacy. A time when India ruled the seas, not with warships and guns, but with trade, culture, and craftsmanship. The INSV Kondinya carries that memory forward.
As the year winds down, we're also looking at the stock market. It's been quite a story, exciting, eventful, yet full of contradictions. It was the year of record public listings, but it also brought reality checks for investors. And tonight we'll try and break it down for you. 2025 was the year of IPOs. IPO is an initial public offering. That's when a company sells its shares to the public for the first time. So initial public offering. In simple words, this is how a business raises money from investors to grow, by selling shares in the stock market. And this year, India saw more IPOs than ever before. More than 370 companies listed themselves on the stock market. Together, they raised a record 1.95 lakh crore rupees. That's roughly 22 billion US dollars. Last year, in 2024, Indian IPOs raised 1.9 lakh crore rupees. Now, if you combine the 2 years, Indian companies have raised nearly 4 lakh crore rupees. This is the highest ever. So what drove the IPO boom? A bunch of things like strong investor demand. We're talking about domestic investors here. They were very excited about IPOs. They showed an extraordinary willingness to put money into new listings. So much so that IPOs were subscribed many times over, meaning the demand was much higher than the number of shares on offer. And this provided a safety net for companies. They went public even as global markets turned cautious. The second reason was strong regulatory support, and that's thanks to India's market regulator SEBI. They streamlined the IPO process, they cut down approval times, and they simplified disclosure rules. Plus, we now have digital platforms, which makes participation easier. The third reason was India's economic boom. This year, India remained one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. GDP growth was stable, inflation eased, and interest rates stabilized. It gave people the confidence to invest. And the result was this. Big names hit the market in 2025, like Tata Capital, LG Electronics India, and Meesho, among others. But it wasn't all rosy. Because while IPO numbers broke records, the returns did not match the hype. Here's what reports say. Nearly half of the major companies that went public are now trading below their initial listing price. Because valuations ran far ahead of reality. Many companies came to the market at very high prices. They expected strong demand to continue indefinitely. But once the initial excitement faded, investors began looking more closely. They looked at profits. They looked at business models. And not every company could deliver. So the stock prices fell. Another factor is the broader market environment. Even as IPOs boomed, foreign investors left this market. This year, they pulled out more than 1.5 lakh crore rupees from Indian markets. And why did foreign investors leave? Well, they were worried about global interest rates, trade tensions, and slowing growth in major economies. So while domestic investors kept pouring money into IPOs, foreign investors exited the Indian market. And that created a strange split. A boom at the entry point, but a cautious approach after listing. So new companies found buyers, but listed companies faced pressure. The lesson was this. An IPO boom does not always mean easy gains. For investors, 2025 was a lesson in selectivity. For companies, it was a test of credibility. And for the market as a whole, it was a reminder that growth stories still need solid fundamentals. Iran is back in the headlines today. Yesterday, we told you about its latest satellite launch from Russia. Today, it's about a growing unrest. Protests have broken out in parts of Tehran. Shopkeepers and traders have taken to the streets. They're angry because Iran's currency has collapsed and food prices have soared. Iran's currency is called the rial. It has fallen to a record low. It stands at 1.42 million to the US dollar. $1 is worth 1.42 million rial. This has pushed up prices across the board. Basic goods have become unaffordable. The government says it is listening, but the pressure is deeper than one crisis. Years of sanctions and restricted trade have left the economy fragile, and now that pressure is boiling over. Our next report has more.
2025 has been a year of strain for Iran. From regional conflict and rising tensions with Israel and the U.S. to water shortages and power cuts, pressure has come from every direction for the country. Now that pressure is spilling onto the streets. This week, protests have erupted in parts of Tehran. Shopkeepers and traders have taken to the roads. They are frustrated and angry, not only over politics, but over survival. At the center of it all is Iran's collapsing currency. The rial has fallen to nearly 1.42 million to the US dollar. This is its weakest level ever. Just a year ago, it was trading far stronger. For ordinary Iranians, this fall has had an immediate impact. Their savings have lost value, product prices change daily, and running a business has become increasingly unpredictable. Many shopkeepers say they have no choice but to close. Suppliers are reluctant to quote prices, and customers are cutting back on even basic purchases. The pressure is not limited to the markets. Official figures show inflation reached 42.2% in December. Food prices rose by 72%, while health and medical costs jumped 50% compared to last year. For families already struggling, those numbers translate into hard decisions about what to buy and what to go without. The government says it understands the frustration.
The government will listen patiently, even if there are harsh voices, because we believe that our people are patient enough, and when their voices are raised, the pressure that is being put on them is high.
President Masoud Pezeshkian has acknowledged public anger. In a post on X, he has promised to address what he called the legitimate demands of the people. Parliamentary leaders have also promised action to protect purchasing power.
People's concerns and protests regarding livelihood problems must be responded to with full responsibility and dialogue, especially with representatives of guilds, and taking necessary measures focused on increasing people's purchasing power and reforming the economic decision-making process must be placed on the agenda of executive officials.
But for many Iranians, the crisis feels deeper than any single policy decision. Years of sanctions have limited trade and access to foreign currency. Oil exports remain constrained, investment has slowed, and confidence in the economy has steadily eroded. What is unfolding now is not sudden. It is the result of pressures that have been building quietly, year after year. In 2022 and 2023, nationwide protests had erupted, exposing the deep political and social fault lines. Those demonstrations were met with force, but the pressures behind them never disappeared. And today, those strains are resurfacing, pushing people to the streets. As 2025 winds up, Iran faces a familiar question. How long can daily life continue under this kind of strain?
Imagine this. You get a minor infection, you pop an antibiotic, you get better in a day or two, and you move on with your life. End of story. Or so you think. Because if you fall seriously ill and the doctor gives you the same kind of drug, chances are it won't work. Not because the disease is stronger, but because the drug has become weaker. You used it too often for too many small problems, and now your body has developed resistance to the medicine. This is called antibiotic resistance. And in India, it's an epidemic. It's so serious that the Prime Minister himself has issued a warning. He spoke about it on Sunday in his monthly address to the nation called Man Ki Baat. This time the Prime Minister talked about antibiotic resistance. He said, we Indians believe in one myth, that one pill can cure everything. You have a cold, take an antibiotic. You have a fever, take an antibiotic. You have sore throat, stomach infection, anything, just take an antibiotic. But here's the problem. Most of these illnesses are viral infections, and antibiotics do not work on viruses. So every time you take an antibiotic without needing it, you're not healing yourself. You're training the microbes to defeat the medicine. And this training, by the way, is working very well. A new report is out. It is from India's top medical body called the ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research. Here's what it has said.
इंडियन काउंसिल ऑफ मेडिकल रिसर्च ने हाल ही में एक रिपोर्ट जारी की है। इसमें बताया गया है कि निमोनिया और यूटीआई जैसी कई बीमारियों के खिलाफ एंटीबायोटिक दवाएं कमजोर साबित हो रही हैं। हम सभी के लिए यह बहुत ही चिंताजनक है। रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक इसका एक बड़ा कारण लोगों द्वारा बिना सोचे समझे एंटीबायोटिक दवाओं का सेवन है। एंटीबायोटिक ऐसी दवाएं नहीं हैं जिन्हें यूं ही ले लिया जाए। इनका इस्तेमाल डॉक्टर की सलाह से ही करना चाहिए।
Do you know how many people die every year due to antibiotic resistance? 1.2 million. That's the global figure. 1.2 million people die every year. That's 3,500 deaths every single day. And in India, the numbers are stark. In 2019, nearly 3 lakh Indians died from infections linked to drug-resistant microbes. 300,000 people. That's like the population of a small city. A study shows 83% Indians carry antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And while that's alarming, it's not really surprising because India is one of the largest consumers of antibiotics in the world. Look at this survey. Only 45% antibiotic use in Indian hospitals is for real infections. What about the rest? In the rest of the cases, it's a preventive measure. I'll repeat that for you. In more than 50% of the cases, antibiotics are given as a preventive measure. It's like wearing a helmet while sitting on your sofa. Is it safe? Yes, it is. But is it necessary? Absolutely not. And in a lot of cases, doctors are not even involved. A covert operation was carried out in Karnataka. Here's what it revealed. 80% of the pharmacies, 80% of the pharmacies sell antibiotics without prescriptions. If you live in India, you already know this. But you must also know that it's dangerous. And here's the science behind it. The bacteria in your body are tiny but stubborn. When you hit them with antibiotics again and again, some of them die, but some survive. And the ones that survive teach others how to survive. It's like sharing a cheat code. And these bacteria then multiply. So when your body really needs that antibiotic, these bacteria resist it. They make the medicine fail. And in India, the problem is even more complex because it's not just people who are popping the pills. Antibiotics are also given to farm animals to make them grow faster. These drugs enter the soil, the water, and the waste. They also enter the food we consume. Now combine this with poor sanitation in many areas, limited access to clean water, crowded clinics and hospitals, and rising pollution in the air. You put it all together and you create the perfect training ground for resistance. In fact, higher air pollution is linked to growing antibiotic resistance. I guess the question is, what should we do? This crisis is man-made, which means it can also be fixed by us. And the fix is surprisingly simple. Stop treating antibiotics like paracetamol. They're not the same thing. If a doctor gives you a course, finish it. Half courses create full-strength superbugs. Also, better hygiene beats better medicine. And farm antibiotics must be regulated. Like Prime Minister Modi said, antibiotics are not a quick fix and must be taken only on a doctor's advice. That's the only way to fight antibiotic resistance. Every year, New Year's Eve looks the same. Loud fireworks, big crowds, bigger parties, cities trying to outsparkle each other. But this year, things are a little different. Instead of flaunting the biggest New Year's Eve party, cities are scaling back celebrations. Some have cancelled fireworks, some have replaced live concerts with pre-recorded shows, and others have imposed strict restrictions. Our next report tells you why.
2025 was a difficult year for countries across the globe. Shootings in Sydney, fires in Hong Kong, floods in Indonesia, unrest in Europe, war in Ukraine, typhoons in Manila, earthquakes looming over Mexico City. And when you add all that up, the world is not ready to take chances. So this New Year's Eve, the world's party planners traded confetti for caution tape. Let's start in Australia. Sydney is the city that normally screams New Year. But this time, some events have gone silent. Bondi Beach's music festival has been cancelled. Not because people don't want to party, but because of the recent mass shooting in the city. Next is Indonesia. Jakarta cancelled fireworks entirely out of solidarity for over 1,100 people killed in the Sumatra floods. Bali's Denpasar even banned fireworks. Now to Hong Kong. Normally, Victoria Harbour lights up like a disco ball for New Year's Eve. But after a high-rise fire killed 160 people, fireworks were replaced with a quieter countdown ceremony. Then comes Tokyo's Shibuya ward. Shibuya used to hold countdowns so massive that crossing the street felt like swimming through humans. But not anymore. After 2019, the ward pulled the plug permanently to avoid crowd accidents. This year again, there's no countdown. In Serbia's Belgrade, authorities cancelled official celebrations too. And in Paris, there's again no New Year party. The city has cancelled its iconic Champs-Élysées New Year's Eve concert. This will be replaced with a pre-recorded show that will be broadcast on national television. Officials fear unpredictable crowds and stampede risks. In Europe, many cities skipped concerts but kept symbolic countdowns. Russia's regions scaled back celebrations too, citing war fatigue and national priorities. But not all cities have cut down on the celebrations. Some have just enforced more security measures. New Delhi cracked down ahead of the New Year with Operation Arghat. Over the last weekend, more than 600 people were arrested in 24 hours. More than 2,800 people were questioned during the operation. Dozens of weapons, lakhs in cash, illicit liquor, drugs, and other stolen items were also seized. The aim was to prevent crimes during the festive season. The city has also deployed over 20,000 police personnel. Traffic curbs start at 7 p.m. around Connaught Place and India Gate. Even Gurgram rolled out 5,400 police personnel and 78 checkpoints. And in Bengaluru, 20,000 police personnel have been deployed. There will be AI surveillance, mandatory CCTV at venues, firecracker bans, and women's safety teams. So as 2025 bows out, the world isn't ending the year in silence. It's ending it with awareness. Cities may have scaled back fireworks, crowds may have thinned, but the message is loud and clear. Celebration isn't cancelled, recklessness is. Because stepping into a new year safely is the real celebration.
"2026 is just around the corner, which can only mean one thing. It's time to dust out the New Year, New Me memes. Everyone is guilty of doing it. New Year, new fitness goals, New Year, new diet, New Year, new travel plans, and New Year, new hobbies. But let's face it, the enthusiasm does not last before you know it. It's a new year, but the same you, and the internet agrees. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Kamya Karthikeyan scripts history as the youngest Indian to ski to the South Pole. Deadly flash floods and heavy rains surged through southern Spain, and New York City sends confetti flying during the countdown test of the New Year's Eve ball drop. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1943, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose unfurled the Indian national flag at the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This was the first time the tricolour was raised on Indian soil, liberated from British rule. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands were occupied by Japan in 1942. They were ceremonially handed over to the Bose-led provisional government. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Little confetti in the face. It is really nice. We need to get a little more height. We need taller people. Happy New Year! You work with her every